The Supreme Court doctrine of corporate constitutional rights and money as speech is wiping out our democracy. Celebrating Earth Day today is also opposing corporate rule. Fossil fuel companies and pipeline companies make up many of the biggest and most powerful corporations in the United States. Let's all fight hard against the building of the Bakken Pipeline here in Iowa. Yes, but let's also, along with fighting hard against the Bakken Pipeline, let's also work toward abolishing the power of corporate personhood and money. To introduce a real environmentalist as well as senator here at our Capitol, Senator Rob Hogue.
I want to thank you all for being out here to speak up today. I will tell you on the Bakken oil pipeline, this is something that, if you understand climate change at all, makes no sense. We already have too many greenhouse gases in the atmosphere. They're already having a devastating impact around the country and across the country and around the world. And to invest more money for more fossil fuels just generally doesn't make sense. This pipeline is an unprecedented pipeline in Iowa's history. We only have 2 existing crude oil pipelines in our state, one of which is defunct because it is corroded and no longer operates. The other is 16 miles long in southeast Iowa, a corner of the state. So it would be unprecedented to have a 300+ mile pipeline cross our state. And those 2 pipelines that already exist, neither one of them is remotely close to the capacity that's being proposed with the Bakken Pipeline. The Bakken Pipeline could move 570,000 barrels of oil a day. That's a lot of oil. And what I want you to think about, and it carries with it all the risks, obviously, to the landowners and the people who would have their property taken so the pipeline could be built, all the risk to Iowa's land and our water. It hasn't been too long ago that the pipeline spilled in the Kalamazoo River, causing over $1 billion in damage, or the Mayflower, Arkansas spill, or the Yellowstone River spill. And just 2 weeks ago I learned about a farmer in North Dakota who's suffering from an oil spill that on his property alone is requiring a cleanup that has already cost $15 million on a single farm. It's not a matter of if oil spills are going to happen. They do happen, and they're devastating when they happen. 570,000 barrels a day, every day, 365 days a year. If that were to happen, that has the same greenhouse gas impact as 16 major coal-burning power plants. And you remember what Iowans did the last time a major coal-burning power plant was proposed for our state? Iowa stepped up and we said no. We said no to LS Power in Waterloo, and the coal plant in Marshalltown also went away to be replaced by something that was cleaner and less devastating to our environment. So Iowans have the capacity to stand up for the public interest on this, regardless of what we are able to do in the Capitol. The people of Iowa are still going to have to educate ourselves, educate the public, and make a difference with how decision makers consider these issues. And we need to send a really clear, concise, direct message that allowing a pipeline that's going to move the carbon equivalent of 16 major coal-burning power plants is not in the interests of the people of Iowa. It is not in our public interest, and we should say no to that. Whether it's the legislature or the Iowa Utilities Board or the courts should say no to that. Not only are we here today to say no to the Bakken oil pipeline, I hope everybody here is also here today to say yes to a safer, more secure, a healthier, a more prosperous, and a more sustainable future. Solar energy, wind power, walkable and bikeable cities, fuel-efficient cars, or the next generation of electric vehicles. When you look at the solutions, they all work. They work for businesses, they work for consumers, they work for jobs, they work for our health, they work for the communities that we want to live in. Thank you for standing up and saying no to the Bakken oil pipeline and helping deliver that message that that is not in the public interest of Iowans. But keep up the momentum, keep learning more, getting more involved, more organized, doing more, speaking up more, because we can build a better future working together, a future that will be safe, healthy, prosperous, and sustainable for every Iowan.
We need to mobilize people based on their values and not their party identity. We've had experience with these disasters in my neck of the woods over the last 6 weeks. You may have read about them. Big ethanol train derailment right up the river on the Iowa side, and a crude oil explosion on the Illinois side right across from Bellevue, which resulted in a fireball that lasted for several hours. And both were in very remote places, very difficult to get to, took many days and frankly millions of dollars to clean up. Thank God it didn't happen 3 weeks later when we had a flood to deal with, would have brought that stuff into the river. But it got the folks in Bellevue wondering, what about these crude oil trains going straight down the middle of our main street on the Canadian Pacific? And what if that had happened in our town? So it's starting to bring attention folks to this problem. It's not about the mode of transportation, it's about the safety of the product itself, and can it be transported safely via any mode? And we simply do not know the answer to those questions, that we shouldn't build a pipeline or transport it by rail. It's the product that we need to focus on. And even the folks up in North Dakota are starting to question that, because they recently, as this week, adopted new legislation to put more stringent regulations in place in that regard.
Folks, this Bakken Pipeline is not a done deal. We're making loud noise and they're hearing us. Let's keep making it. We can beat this project. We can stop it.
I mean, the people I met, they're counting on us. They're counting on us. And now I know there are people here who are landowners, who are in the pathway of this pipeline. That the landowners really are the focal point of this movement. I mean, we have to all be engaged. Those of us more broadly concerned about eminent domain, those of us concerned about climate change, about the environment. From whatever angle we come at this from, we have to be engaged. But these folks are in the crosshairs. They're getting hammered day after day by pipeline company officials. One guy I met, he'd been called 6 times in one day. I get messages regularly from a woman in Story County who is just distraught because they're knocking at her door with briefcases, because they're out surveying her land. And what I found out was that people often had never had any conversation with anyone about this from our side of it. It had always been the pipeline representative hammering away at them time after time, telling them things that in some cases aren't true, like, we have to get it off trains. Okay, this is not going to reduce the amount of oil traveling on trains. We know that. Also telling them things that weren't true regarding compensation, regarding how much they could potentially get. Also things that weren't true regarding what would happen in condemnation. So, you know, what I found out was that the majority of people are against this pipeline. Even some people who have signed and settled with the company are against this pipeline. Because the big question is this pipeline a public purpose? I don't think so. We all need to be encouraging our lawmakers and any other lawmaker we have a connection with to support that legislation. So I'd say, you know, tomorrow, please call your state senator, call your state representative, tell them to support the eminent domain legislation. We need to show that there's a groundswell of interest in having that bill passed. And I say those bills because there's one in the House and one in the Senate. And I looked at Nebraska. Nebraska is very instructive because they have effectively stopped the Keystone Pipeline in Nebraska. I mean, it's not actually dead yet, but it's on life support. That Keystone Pipeline is almost certainly not going to happen. Now, when Bold, Nebraska got involved in that struggle, TransCanada had already been signing up landowners for 2 years. They had 50% of the landowners signed up. Today, there are 90% signed up, but there are 10% that are so organized, passionate, and strong against that that they've been able to stop that thing from happening. Now, I think we're going to have more than 10% in Iowa. And right now, the best guess is maybe 25% are signed up, maybe. And some of them, again, wish they hadn't.
The earth does not belong to us. We belong to the earth. We did not weave the web of life. We are merely strands in it. And what we do to the web, we do to ourselves. Whatsoever befalls the earth, befalls the sons and daughters of the earth.